Benjamin Franklin once said, "If you fail to plan, then you plan to fail." And in many ways, this is why it is so important to have goals. In fact, research clearly shows that people who make consistent progress towards meaningful goals live healthier and happier lives than those who don't. And this is largely because having goals allows you to steer your life in the direction that you choose. Sure, you may already be setting and working towards certain goals, such as getting a job promotion or saving up for a holiday. But are you setting goals for all of the other areas of your life which are important to you? Whilst some of us do set goals, the reality is that most of us don't. Some of us simply don't set goals because we have never been taught how, or because it's not even in our awareness to do so. And then there are others of us who don't set goals simply because on a subconscious level, we know that we won't achieve them. And you know what? I don't blame you, because research shows that 92% of people who set goals actually fail to achieve them. And so many of us just won't set goals because we don't like specifying conditions for failure. Or in other words, by not setting goals and by simply drifting through life, which, may I add, is really easy to do because it's just a matter of not doing as well as we could be doing, then we don't know when we fail. And this enables us to avoid all of the pain that comes from failing in that moment. However, we can only fool ourselves for so long, because eventually we get to a point in our lives in which we are faced with undeniable failure, where we end up failing so much that we're actually done. And this can easily happen by the time you're 40. I say this because I often coach people who have gotten to their 40s, 50s, 60s, only to find that their health is failing. Their marriage is broken. They're doing a job that they're not passionate about. Or sometimes, often, all three. Or it could be any other less than desirable state that they look up and find themselves in. One which is far, far away from where they thought they would be at this point in their lives. And this is because they have gotten caught in or chosen to go along with the drift of life, where life has taken them along for the ride instead of them dictating where and how they wanted their life to go. Sure, we can't control everything that happens in life, but we can work towards a future that we want to create. And given that you only get one shot at life, it's important that we live a life that we enjoy living. And the way we do this is by setting goals. Now that you know why goal setting is so important, I want to talk about some important things to do when it comes to setting and achieving your own goals. And the first thing you should do before you set any goals is to first determine if you are where you want or should be in all areas of your life, be it your health, your relationships, your finances, or any other area for that matter. If you're not, then whatever you do, don't beat yourself up. Remember, it's never too late to get back on track, and taking the time to first determine where you are at in each of these areas is the first step towards creating practical goals that will help you to move forward in the direction that you want. Why? Because at the end of the day, whilst we may all seem different, we all really want the same things in life, and that is to be both healthy and happy. Similarly, science shows us that the things that make all of us healthy and happy are also the same too, and include investing an equal amount of energy into what we chew, into what we do, and into living true. Simply take a moment to sit quietly and intuitively ask yourself the following questions. Am I where I should or want to be in life? And if not, then what 3 specific areas would I most like to improve on? Either way, take the time to write down your answers. Okay, so the next tip I want to give you when it comes to setting and achieving goals is to ensure to focus more on your behaviours instead of your goals. So what do I mean by this? Well, when most of us go about setting goals, we often do so by thinking about what we want, setting some goals around what we want, and then trying to stay focused on our goals until we achieve them. And whilst this may sound like a good strategy, if you do this, then there is a very high chance that you won't actually achieve your goals. Why? Well, it's because goals are not always in our full control, especially when they are influenced by other variables and other people. Our behaviours, by contrast, are things that we have full control over and which are not influenced by other variables and people. They don't require a coach, an expert, a teacher, a friend, or anyone else. Instead, you alone can do behaviours, and in this way are the very things that you need to focus on if you want to achieve your goals. Let's take one of the most common examples of goal setting that I see and deal with, and that is in relation to weight loss. You might say, I want to lose 20 pounds by the end of the year. And so what happens is that you start eating better, you drink lots of water, you begin exercising, and you do all the right things. Initially, you might lose some weight, which motivates you to keep on going, but then after some time, you jump back on the scales only to find that you haven't lost as much weight as you wanted to. Or even worse, that you've actually put weight on instead of losing it. OMG. And so out of sheer frustration, you give up. So what's happened here is that you've put too much focus onto your goal and not enough focus onto your behaviours. However, your goal is not something you can have full control over. Sure, you can do all of the right things, but at the end of the day, there are lots of physiological processes within your body that can stop weight loss in its tracks, many of which are not in your control. They're simply not. And so the key to achieving your goals, and in this example of losing weight, is to focus on what you can control. And what you can always control is your behaviours. This includes how you react to things in your life, the rewards and consequences you apply to yourself, your consistency and intensity of effort, and whether you will deliver on the things that you say you're going to do. You control the food and drinks you put in your mouth. You control how much exercise you do. You control how you feel about your weight, including the process of losing weight itself. You can either feel deprived and miserable about the lifestyle choices you're making, or you can feel good and proud about these newfound lifestyle choices. For example, instead of saying to yourself something along the lines of, I don't know, I can't eat anything I like and I'm not even losing weight anyway, so what's the point of even trying? You could instead say something along the lines of, I'm making some healthy dietary changes and moving my body as I should. And even if the scales show that I haven't lost any weight yet, I know that if I keep this up, then I will eventually achieve my ideal body. A great way to focus on your behaviors instead of your goal is to ask yourself, what can I do today that is going to help me get closer to that goal? What can I do tomorrow that is going to help me get closer to that goal? And what can I do this week that is going to help me get closer to that goal? Doing so will help you to focus on your behaviors, and know that if you focus on your behaviors day after day, you will keep yourself motivated day after day. You will feel good about what you've done. I did this or I did that. You won't be worried about the goal, including how much weight or anything else that is outside of your control. Instead, just focus 100% on the part that is in your control. So remember, if you want to focus on your goals, then you need to focus on your behaviors, because they are the building blocks that get you to your goals. So if we take the example of achieving permanent weight loss, by focusing on modifying the behaviors which are in your control, then week after week, you improve more and more attributes of your life. Keep it up, and it's only a matter of time until your life falls into balance, and the excess weight you've once been carrying simply all falls off. And so what's happened is that you achieve your weight loss goal without ever really focusing on it. My next tip is to adopt a growth mindset. And I say this because so many of us sell ourselves short when it comes to setting goals for ourselves. And we do this because we often place limits on what we can achieve based upon what we currently know. However, what we forget to realize is that we can and do grow. And so it is really important to trust that you can grow, because if you don't, then you instantly cut yourself off from achieving your dreams. In fact, whilst both have the same dreams, wants, and ambitions, often the only difference between successful and not so successful people is their mindset. That is, unsuccessful people often say, I don't know how to do that. So they stop themselves. Whereas successful people often say, I don't know how to do that, but you know what? I'll learn. Or I'll have to grow into that. In other words, they take their inadequacies and put them into a to-do list versus avoiding it and running away and hiding in Netflix for 5 seasons. And so when it comes to setting goals, it is really, really important to never limit the vision of what you can achieve. This includes who you are and what you know, because your greatest asset is you. You can never underestimate what you are capable of, because you can grow and learn how to do anything. Just as you are an infinite being, so is your learning. You just need to have confidence and belief in yourself. Confidence is simply the belief in yourself that you can work things out. If someone else can do it, then so can you. Sure, it will take time and energy, as well as having goals and a plan to get there. But you can do anything that you want to do. And it all starts with adopting a growth mindset. In fact, once you do, then the fear and disappointment will actually disappear, because you will realize that it's just one more step, one more learning to get there. So remember to aim for the stars when it comes to creating your vision and setting goals for yourself. It's how we change not only our own lives, but also the world at large. Okay, so another way to keep your goals at front of mind is with a vision board. And a vision board is simply a physical representation of a goal or goals that you are aiming to achieve. In other words, of all of the things that we want to be, do, or have in our life. In this way, a vision board enables you to better bring to life and visualize your goals and aspirations, and as such can really help to keep us inspired and motivated towards achieving them. And to be effective, your vision board needs to accurately reflect the future life that you want to lead. Therefore, choosing the most appropriate images that clearly show your desired future is vital. The things you put on your board should be the end result that you are aiming for. But also, with that said, it's also a good idea to include imagery that reflects the behaviors and steps required to actually get there. And so, once again, coming back to the previous weight loss example, because we've spoken about that so much, while you may have a picture of some scales showing your ideal weight, it would also be a great idea to include photos of someone, or better still yourself, exercising and eating healthy and nutritious meals. Okay, so moving on, it's also important to ensure to review your goals and make adjustments as required. This will keep you inspired and ensure that you do actually remain on track towards achieving your goals. If you find that you are not achieving your goals, then instead of getting upset or even worse, just giving up, simply try to understand why you haven't achieved them. Were the goals that you originally set unrealistic for the time frame specified? Or do you have some conflicting values which are influencing your behaviors and taking you further away from your goals? For example, if your goal is to lose weight, but you enjoy a glass of wine on most nights of the week, then you may need to decide on what you want more. Remember that you are in control of your behaviors, and it's our behaviors which are the building blocks that get us to our goals. Also, in a similar way to reviewing your goals on a regular basis, it's also important to take the time to audit your life too. Now, just want to clarify the main difference between conducting a life audit versus simply reviewing and adjusting your goals is that a life audit is a much more thoughtful self-reflection and thorough assessment of your life. I emphasize your life because it's really important to ensure that the life you are living is in fact yours and is one that's filled with purpose and meaning. And a life audit gives you a clear picture of your life, of what's going well and what isn't going so well. It shows you where you most need to focus your time and attention on in order to better achieve balance and live your healthiest and happiest life. In fact, without this knowledge, you're either guessing your wants and needs, making choices based on other people's opinions, or living life on autopilot. And we all know what happens there. You get caught in the drift of life. And so the best way to do a life audit is to simply take the time once a year to review your holistic 360 success path. And finally, the last thing I want to say when it comes to goal setting is don't leave it too late. You know, people often tell me, someday I'll get fit and healthy, Rob. Someday I'll write a book, Rob. Someday I'll travel the world, Rob. Someday I'll do this or that, Rob. You know what? The only problem with this is that someday it's not on the calendar, and you will never be as young as you are today to achieve your goals, fulfill your dreams, and do the things that you really want to do in your life. There's nothing like the loss of a loved one or a cancer diagnosis to empower you to start achieving your goals. However, for many of us, this often comes too late. And whilst no one likes to talk about it, at some point or another, we are all going to die. Sure, it's a morbid thought, I know, but it's worth remembering. See, we all like to think that there's all of the time in the world to reach our goals. But sadly, that's not the case. And for many people, time slips through their fingers. Then before they know it, it's too late. In fact, did you know that the average person only lives for around 26,000 days? This means that if you're 36, you've probably only got about 13,000 days. And if you're 56, it's a bit over 5,000 days. So as you can see, life is really short and you should really make it count. I know I do. And I do so by setting and achieving meaningful and purposeful goals. So please, when it comes to your own life, don't wait until it's too late. Instead, take the initiative and start setting goals and achieving your dreams today. So do you regularly set and review goals? Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to learn more about the other essential attributes of staying in your best shape. And until next time, watch what you chew, do what you need to do, and always live true.